Welcome to another segment of High School Geometry with Netz and Weichel. This is Mrs. Netz.
And this is Mrs. Weichel.
And today we are doing 8.6 Deriving Circle Equations. What are you going to be learning? Well, by the end of the lesson, you will be able to convert the equation of a circle from general to standard form. Why do you need to learn this? Well, the skill will help to study all kinds of relationships through coordinate analysis. How will you know it? Well, you'll know you mastered it when you can correctly complete the square.
Ooh,
Ooh, it's a mystery.
exciting.
Complete a square, like draw on the last side of it or what?
Maybe. Wouldn't it be nice if it were that easy?
Yeah, no.
All right, so just to review, the standard equation of a circle is the difference of x and h squared plus the difference of y and k squared is equal to r squared. Where your center is h and k, your radius is r, and a point on the circle is x and y. Again, remember this all stems from the Pythagorean theorem. We went over this in lesson 8.5. Now we're going to talk about the expanded equation of a circle, or the extended or the general equation of a circle. You can see it written in a bunch of different ways. It's going to be x squared plus y squared plus ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. So it's long.
But it's really not that big of a deal because if you think about our standard form of a circle, the equation, you had an x squared plus something, right?
Yes, you did.
Well, that would be the x squared plus that ax, right?
There you go.
And then you had a y squared plus something.
Right.
And then you had it all equal to something.
R squared.
Oh, so like the c.
There you go. So yeah, we're just basically going to manipulate this equation and convert it back into the standard equation of a circle, which is the one we like because it gives us the important information of centers and radii. So that's what we're going to go through. That is going to be used, the completing the square method, which is taught in Algebra 1 or not taught in Algebra 1?
I believe, yes, we do that in Algebra 1.
Okay, so you guys, whether you remember or not, you have seen this method before. All right, so the first equation in the lower left corner, you're given the extended equation of x squared plus y squared minus 6x plus 8y plus 9 is equal to 0. We gave you 7 simple steps to follow that will always convert an extended equation back into standard equation. So we're just going to go through this. I am using a different color for every step that I'm going to be doing. So if you would like to do these in color code, which I love, please go ahead and find 7 colors laying around. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that.
Now, when you go to do step 1, there's one little thing I think I want to add in there to help them out. Are we ready to start?
Yes.
All right, here we go. So if you'll notice, step 1 says reorder by grouping all your x's and y's. So that's what we're going to do. The only thing I want to add to this is I want you to leave a little bit of space.
Yes.
So when you say reorder by grouping x and y, if you would just write in your notes right there, right in between 1 and 2, but leave a little space, and we're going to show you exactly what we mean.
I'm going to have a different line for each one, but what she's saying is right here, leave a little bit of space.
So you're
right
going to
here,
write,
leave a little bit of space.
So you're going to have x squared minus 6x,
Space.
and then draw an underline to leave a space because something is getting ready to go there. And then do plus y squared plus 8y, do a space because something's getting ready to go there, and then plus 9 equals 0.
All right, so all we've done is change the order of what everything is written in. We've put our x's together, put our y's together, and then we have our constant. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move c, and if you remember, c is that constant number. In this case, we have 9. We're moving it to the other side, so because it's positive 9, you are going to subtract it to the opposite side. So we're going to minus 9, and we end up with a negative 9 on the right side of our equation. The next step, when I did these on your guided notes, I just worked above the equation for a little extra room. You're going to take the number that is a, which in this case is negative 6, and you are going to cut it in half. So if a is negative 6, you're going to just mentally think about what is half of negative 6. And then immediately right after you cut the a in half, you are going to square the quotient or square the answer. So we know that negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. And negative 3 times negative 3 is going to give me a positive 9. You are going to take that positive 9 and you're going to put it in that space. So it's going to go in between that negative 6x and that positive y squared. So that is that space that Mrs. Netz was talking about. The real kicker with this is you have to remember that what you do to one side, you have to do it to the other. So you can see here I also have a plus 9 on the right side of my equation. So make sure you don't forget to do both sides. For step 6, it says repeat for b. So you're going to go through and do exactly the same thing. So where I said cut a in half, you're going to cut b in half. Then you're going to square the quotient, and then you're going to add this to both sides of the equation. So b is this 8. So if I take 8 divided by 2, I get 4. And 4 squared is 16. So I am going to add 16 to both sides of my equation. After you've gone through and done the first 6 steps, you are ready for the final step. Your final step is that we are going to factor. And you actually have 2 factoring problems. You can factor the x trinomial and the y trinomial. So I made my 2 parentheses here. What times what gives you x squared?
X.
So we're going to plug an x into the beginning of our parentheses. And then we look at the last term, which is 9. You have to think about what times what gives you 9. So we know 1 times 9 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. You're going to pick the pair that gives you 6 when you add or subtract them.
But here's an even cooler trick. When you divided your negative 6 by 2, you got negative 3. That's the number you're going to use.
Because 3 times 3 is 9, and negative 3 times negative 3 is negative 6. Because you have the same 2 factors, we can condense this instead of writing it twice. We know that our first blank squared is going to be x minus 3 squared. There's our x minus h.
Yay!
And now we're going to go through and do the same exact process. So y times y. And again, what times what gives you 16 and 8 at the same time? As Mrs. Netz pointed out, you kind of get it here when you cut this in half. You get 4. 4 plus 4 and 4 times 4 fit the criteria. Because it's a positive 8, it's going to be plus signs. 2 of the same thing, so we can just write it once and square it. I didn't put any notes over here. Over here you just have 3 numbers that you need to simplify. Negative 9 plus 9 is going to go to 0, and 0 plus 16 gives us 16. And there is your standard form. So you know you have a center located at 3, negative 4 with a radius of 4. The pattern in which we did this, I'm going to go through it this way every time, but hopefully you'll pick up on. Basically, from this step to get to here is always going to have the same pattern. Square root, and then the sign of the middle term.
One of the things that I like to do when I'm completing the squares, after I do my groupings and I've rewritten with my space, what I do immediately is I take the number that I'm dividing by 2, so in this case negative 6, I know that's negative 3, I immediately write that into my equation for my circle, like right away, because I know that is what is going to go there. So that may help you with completing the square. Then I know that after I take the half, then I just square it, and that's what I'm plugging back into the equation on both sides.
So what a lot of you will start to notice, I won't take this long on every problem, I promise. What a lot of you will start to notice is again, kind of like that little trick. This is negative 3, well, so is this. Well, this is positive 4, so is this. What you have to be careful of is remembering what I've noticed students doing is they always get the left side of the equation correct, but they don't get over here correct. So don't forget that while, yes, you're just using the negative 3 here, well, negative 3 squared is a positive 9. So you have to remember to add that 9 to the right side of the equation. Over here you have that positive 4. Well, 4 squared is 16. So you have to remember to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have a negative 9 over here, which is not going to give you your r squared in your standard equation. So while, yes, the left side, super easy. Don't forget that easy part of the right side either.
All right, let's go ahead and do another one.
All right, so the middle one, you have the equation of x squared plus y squared minus 2x minus 4y minus 20 is equal to 0. So first thing we do, reorder your x and y's by grouping them.
And leave your little space.
So you have your x squared and negative 2x together with a space. And then you have your y squared minus 4y with a space, and then minus 20 equals 0. Then you're going to move whatever c is. In this case, c is negative 20. So because we're subtracting 20, to move it, I need to add it. So we're going to add 20 to both sides.
Now here comes that half trick. So since that half trick is here, what you may want to do is go down a little bit on your paper and write in the parentheses and everything, kind of set up your circle equation.
Exactly.
You know it's going to be x and then something squared, and you know it's going to be y and something in parentheses squared. So go ahead and write that.
Exactly. So now your a is that negative 2. You're going to cut it in half. So that right there actually gives you your h.
Yep.
Cutting a in half gives you what h is. You know the first parenthesis is going to end up being x minus 1. The rest of it helps with the right side of the equation, finding your r squared. What you do with that half of a, you square it, and then you take whatever that squared is. So again, it's negative 1. Once you square it, you get a positive 1. You're going to add that to both sides of your equation. So here's the plus 1, here's the other plus 1. Then you're going to go through and repeat for b. Well, b is that negative 4. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is going to give you a positive 4. So that's what you're going to add to both sides of the equation.
And you can take your negative 2 and go ahead and substitute it into the parentheses down below, because then you'll have y minus 2.
And then again, I'm just kind of explaining why that trick works. You know that this is a perfect square, so it's going to work out to be x times x. 1 times 1 and 1 plus 1 give you that 1 and 2, and then you know they're going to be negative because that's a negative 2 in the middle. And if you, as you can see, a square, or I'm sorry, half of a up here was that negative 1. See how it works? Over here, you know it's going to be y and y. It's going to be 2 and 2 because 2 times 2 and 2 plus 2 both give me 4, and it's going to be a negative because it's a negative 4 here. So this is going to be that y minus 2, which if you remember again, b cut in half was negative 2.
Now don't forget, you have to add everything to the right side.
So we cannot forget to add that 1 and 4 over here to get that 25. So I know I have a center at 1, 2 with a radius of 5.
Easy.
So for this one, same process.
Here we go. So we're going to go ahead and reorder by grouping. Don't forget to leave your little space. So you're going to have x squared minus 8x with a little space plus y squared minus 2y, little space, and plus 8. Next, we're going to move c to the other side by subtracting 8 from both sides. And we get x squared minus 8x plus y squared minus 2y is equal to negative 8. So now we want to cut a in half. So now we're going to take our negative 8, we're going to cut that in half, and we get negative 4. We're going to go ahead and square that. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. And we're going to add that to both sides. Now we're going to take half of b. Half of b, our b is negative 2. Half of that is negative 1. Square it. So negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Add that to both sides. Hopefully you used your little trick that'll save you from having to think too much about the factoring, and you should have taken half of your negative 8, which would then be your negative 4, and we get x minus 4 squared, and then half of your negative 2 was negative 1, and we get y minus 1 squared.
And then on the right side, you have 17, take away 8, you get 9. So your center is at positive 4, positive 1, because remember your HK would just be the 4 and 1. And then r squared is 9, so your radius must be
3.
All right, back side of notes, you're just going to basically take this equation and graph it. And in order to graph a circle, you need to know the center and radius. So to do this, you're going to convert to the standard equation of the circle. Once you can do that, you can then graph your circle.
Now, if you'll notice, everything that we've done up to this point, we've had an x squared, we've had a y squared, and we've had something with an x and something with a y, and whoa, there's not anything with an x.
So if you remember what we said in the previous lesson, when there is no when there is no numbers by x or y, like in this case, there is just x squared. When there was just x squared, we knew our center was already at 0. So x squared is the first part of your standard equation as well.
So that's going to make grouping pretty easy. So we got x squared plus y squared
So you're already grouped.
plus 4y, leave a little space, minus 21 equals 0.
So now we're going to move the minus 21 by adding, and you get this equation.
Next, you can't do half of a because we don't have an a.
So you don't have to worry about it. This is actually less work.
Let's go ahead and do half of b. Half of 4 is 2. Square it back to 4 again. Make sure you add it to both sides.
And then from here, you just go straight to your answer. So I didn't show as many of the small little steps here. X squared is the first part. Right here, as we talked about, this is just going to be square root, sine square root. So y plus 2, and the right side is going to be 25. Remember, half of b was positive 2. There's that number right there.
So our center is located at 0, negative 2, and our radius is 5. So you could count 5 in any direction, going right, going left, going up, going down. Once you put those points, you can use your compass, put your compass point at the center, stretch your compass out 5 units, and circle away.
There you go. All right, last problem we have. Sort of the same process, but this time we're not going to graph. But what I'm asking for is, so we are going to reorder this. Without graphing it, you are still going to be able to determine the answer to this problem because you're going to just basically think of it like a translation. That's how I always view this. If I translate left, right, up, down, you know exactly what you're going to add and subtract and which to, what, like to the x or to the y if you're going left, right, up, or down.
So basically, it wants these end points of a vertical and horizontal diameter.
Which are these blue points. I want to know the coordinates of these blue points
so
for this equation.
Once you find the center, if you know the radius, you'll know how far to count.
You're just adding and subtracting to your x or y.
So you'll add and subtract to x, add and subtract to y, and then you're done.
That gives you your answer. So for this, again, I'm just going to go through the process of completing the square. So the first thing you have to do is reorder everything. So you have your x's together, your y's together, and then here's your c. C is positive 4, so the next step is to subtract 4 from both sides. The next thing you're going to do is figure out what half of negative 6 is, and half of 4, square that. So half of negative 6 squared is 9. Half of 4 squared is 2. So we're adding, is 4. So we're adding 9 and 4 to both sides of the equation. Here, if we were to factor this, you end up with x minus 3. And you get y plus 2. Over here, your 4's cancel and you're left with 9. So factored, and just simplified. So I know my center is at positive 3, negative 2, because h must be positive 3 because it's x minus h. Over here, I know it's going to be negative 2 because it's y minus k, so k must be a negative for this to turn to a positive. I know r squared is 3. R squared is 9. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add 3. I forgot to type this, everybody. Sorry. I'm going to add 3 to the right, and that's going to give me this point. Because I'm going to the right, that's going to change my x coordinate. So I know my answer is going to be 6, negative 2, because I did not go up or down at all. I'm going to do exactly the same for this one. But instead of going right 3, I'm going negative 3. And if you remember from your translation day, going left was a negative move, so we're going to simply subtract. So because I'm subtracting from 3, I'm subtracting 3 from 3, I get 0, negative 2. So there are the what I had as in color blue on your graph on the last problem. Those are the horizontal diameter points.
So now we've got to get our vertical.
So again, we're going 3 because that is our radius. Well, going up, I know is positive. Going down, I know is negative. What's going to change when I go up and down? Only my y. So 3 is going to stay the same. I just have to figure out what is negative 2 plus 3. It's 1. So the top part, the highest point on my circle is at 3, 1. And then lastly, the lowest part is going to be at 3, negative 5. There we go. There we go. And that's it.
Easy.
Hopefully you guys feel confident about this. Given the different parts of an equation, hopefully you can figure out what the equation would be and what the center and what the radius all is. If at any point completing the square was confusing for you or you have questions about something that we did, please don't hesitate to reach us.
Hey, Mrs. Michael.
Hey, what, Ms. Nets?
Why should you never talk to Pi?
Why should you never talk to Pi?
Because she just goes on and on and on
Forever and
and
ever
on
and
and
ever.
on